It's strange how silence can scream louder than words. That morning, the quiet in our kitchen felt different, like the air itself was holding a secret I wasn't supposed to hear. The coffee machine hummed softly in the background, a steady rhythm that once meant comfort. But now, every sound in that house felt off, rehearsed, almost mechanical. The faint scent of cinnamon toast, the clink of a spoon against a cup, even the way the light touched the kitchen table, it all seemed too normal, too still. I watched my husband, Daniel, sitting across from me, pretending to read emails on his phone. His expression was calm, but his thumb hovered over the same message for too long. I'd known this man for 20 years. I could read his silence better than any word he ever spoke, and that silence was telling me everything. He took a sip of his coffee without looking up. "You're quiet this morning," he said, eyes fixed on the screen. I smiled faintly. "Just tired," I replied. The lies slid out easily, almost as easily as his had, I guessed. For months, I had felt something shift between us. The small gestures, the quick good night, the phone flipped face down, the smell of perfume that wasn't mine lingering on his shirt after late client meetings. But I wasn't the type to explode. I was the type to wait. Because when love starts to die, patience becomes your last form of control. That morning, as Daniel left for work, I walked him to the door like always. He leaned in to kiss my cheek, the same ritual. The same fake warmth. But as his lips brushed my skin, I smelled it again. That same soft floral scent. Not mine, not from our home. When he drove off, I stood there for a moment, watching his car disappear down the street. The smile fell from my face. My hands were trembling, but my mind was sharper than ever. I whispered to myself, "All right, Daniel, if you're hiding something, I'll find it." The next few days were a blur of routine, work, groceries, evening TV, except that every moment was now an investigation. I became an actress in my own home, pretending not to notice the phone calls he took outside or the receipts that never quite matched his stories. Then one afternoon, the first crack appeared. I was doing laundry when I found a hotel keycard in the pocket of his jeans. The name read Mariners Hotel. We hadn't been there since our anniversary years ago. A small luxury hotel overlooking the bay. The one where he promised me forever. I sat there on the laundry room floor, the washing machine buzzing behind me, the keycard warm in my hand. I felt nothing at first, just a quiet, dull ache. The kind that sits in your stomach and doesn't leave. But pain is a teacher, and I was ready to learn. That night, Daniel came home late again. I was sitting in the living room, pretending to scroll through recipes on my iPad. He looked surprised to see me awake. "Still up?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Couldn't sleep," I said softly. "You?" He shrugged. "Long day. You know how clients are." I nodded. "Oh, I do." He didn't notice the keycard sitting half-hidden under the edge of the couch. He didn't notice the faint tremor in my voice when I said goodnight. But I noticed everything. The way his shoulders stiffened when I mentioned the word hotel. The flicker of guilt that crossed his eyes before he smiled it away. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Confrontation gives them power. Evidence takes it back. The next morning, I called the hotel. "Mariners Hotel, this is Leela speaking. How may I help you?" I took a breath. "Hi, I'm calling to confirm a reservation under the name Daniel Reed. He said he booked a room for an event next week." There was a pause. Keys clicked in the background. "Yes, ma'am, I do see that. A double suite, ocean view, for 2 nights." My throat tightened. "Thank you," I whispered and hung up. 2 nights. Ocean view. The kind of suite we couldn't afford back when we first got married. Now, he was booking it for someone else. But instead of crying, I opened my laptop and created a new folder on the desktop, Truth. For the next week, I gathered everything, receipts, messages, photos of his car parked outside a cafe he never mentioned. I followed patterns, logged timestamps, learned how to read his silence like a language. Each clue was another thread in the tapestry of deceit he had woven. Then one evening, while cleaning the dining room, I found an envelope tucked behind a stack of bills. Inside was an invitation, gold-foiled, elegant, with the words, "Surprise 40th birthday celebration for Daniel Reed, hosted by Emma." Emma. The same name that had appeared in his messages more than once. Emma. Emma. A sharp laugh escaped me. A surprise party, for him, hosted by her. I sat down slowly, the invitation trembling in my hands. And then an idea began to form. Quiet, dangerous, poetic. If they wanted a party, I would give them one. Just not the kind they expected. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, planning every detail in my head. My heart hurt, yes, but underneath the hurt was something stronger. Clarity. He had taken my trust. I would take his truth and show it to everyone he cared about. And for the first time in months, I smiled. The next morning, I looked at my reflection in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. Her eyes were tired but alert. Her lips, usually soft and patient, were pressed into a firm line. The woman I used to be, the one who waited, forgave, and believed in promises, was gone. What stood in her place was someone new, someone ready. I brushed my hair back, tied it neatly, and went to the bakery. The scent of fresh bread and coffee filled the air as the first customers arrived. To everyone else, it was a normal day. But behind my polite smiles, my mind was working like a chessboard. Every move calculated, every decision a step toward checkmate. Daniel's birthday was in 10 days. 10 days to plan everything. 10 days to gather every truth, every piece of evidence, and every ounce of strength I had left. That afternoon, I went to the little photo studio 2 blocks away. The owner, Mr. Howell, had known me for years. "Ah, Juliet," he said, wiping his glasses. "Haven't seen you in a while. Need something printed?" I nodded and handed him a flash drive. "Yes, these photos. High quality, please. I'll need them framed." He connected the drive, and as the first images loaded, I watched him from the corner of my eye. There they were, Daniel and Emma, walking together into the restaurant, their faces glowing in candlelight. Another photo, the two of them in the reflection of a shop window, close, smiling like newlyweds. Mr. Howell froze for a moment, realizing what he was seeing. He cleared his throat softly. "Ah, very nice lighting," he murmured awkwardly. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "Make sure the prints are perfect. I'll be picking them up next week." I left with a calm that felt foreign, like still water hiding a deep current underneath. That evening, I invited my friend and neighbor, Sarah, over for coffee. She was the kind of woman who never missed a detail, and if anyone could help me pull off what I was about to do, it was her. We sat by the kitchen window, the light fading into dusk. "So, what's this about?" she asked, sipping her drink. I took a deep breath. "Daniel's birthday party." Her eyebrows lifted. "Oh, that's sweet. You're throwing him a surprise?" I smiled faintly, something like that. And then I told her everything. The emails, the perfume, the hotel room, the invitation from Emma. I showed her the photos I had printed on my phone. Sarah's expression shifted from disbelief to anger. "Juliet, after all these years, how could he?" I shrugged, emotion small but heavy. "He forgot who I was. I think it's time he remembers." She leaned forward, eyes wide. "What are you planning?" I smiled, a calm, quiet smile. The kind of surprise you never forget. The next day, I called Emma. I'd never spoken to her directly before. She was Daniel's client, someone he always mentioned casually, as if her name meant nothing. She answered on the second ring, her voice smooth and cheerful. "Hello?" "Hi," I said softly. "This is Juliet, Daniel's wife." There was a pause. A long one. I could almost hear her swallow. "Oh, Mrs. Reed, hi. What a surprise. I heard you're organizing a birthday party for Daniel," I said, keeping my tone polite. "I wanted to thank you. That's so thoughtful of you." Her voice wavered for a split second. "Oh, yes, just a small thing with his colleagues. I thought it would be fun." "I'm so glad," I replied smoothly. "Actually, I was thinking of helping you. You know how Daniel hates surprises that aren't planned well. Maybe I can take care of some arrangements, food, decorations, that sort of thing." Another pause. "Oh, that's kind of you, Mrs. Reed. Of course, we can coordinate." "Wonderful," I said, smiling into the receiver. "I'll make sure it's a night to remember." When I hung up, I exhaled slowly. My hands were trembling, but my heart was steady. The stage was set. For the next week, everything moved with precision. Emma sent me the guest list: Daniel's friends, some clients, a few family members. I confirmed a catering and arranged for a projector under the guise of a birthday tribute slideshow. Sarah helped me prepare the presentation. Each photo, each clip, each message, all arranged perfectly. But instead of the usual smiling family memories, this slideshow would tell a different kind of story. I remember sitting with Sarah in my living room late one night, the glow of the laptop casting blue light across our faces. "You're sure you want to do this?" she asked softly. "Yes," I said, eyes fixed on the screen. "I'm not destroying him. I'm showing the truth. The truth will do the rest." We finalized the presentation, a beautiful lie wrapped in elegance. The opening slide said, "For the man who taught me that love deserves honesty." Then the next slide, the photos began. The day before the party, I went to pick up the prints from Mr. Howell's studio. He handed me the bag carefully. "They turned out beautifully," he said gently. "But are you sure about this, Juliet?" I met his eyes. "Yes, sometimes the only way to heal is to let the wound be seen." That night, as I set the dining table for dinner, Daniel walked in, humming softly, his phone in hand. He looked content. Too content. He kissed my cheek and said, "You're going to love the surprise Emma's planning for me. She's been working so hard." I smiled back. "I bet she has." He chuckled, completely unaware that the walls around him were closing in. For the first time in months, I looked at him not with sadness, but with clarity. The man who once held my heart now held a secret, and I was about to set it free. That night, I stood by the window, looking out at the quiet neighborhood lights. The air was heavy with the promise of something irreversible. Tomorrow, everything would change. For him, for me, for everyone who thought they knew us. And somewhere deep inside, between the anger and the sorrow, I felt peace. Because the truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. They say the calm before the storm is the most dangerous kind of silence. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes you're the storm. The day of Daniel's birthday arrived with perfect weather, soft sunlight, a crisp breeze, and the kind of golden glow that made everything look more beautiful than it deserved. People say fate has a cruel sense of irony. Maybe it does. By noon, I had everything ready. The ballroom was set up just the way Emma wanted. White roses, gold ribbons, string lights that shimmered like champagne bubbles. On the surface, it was a celebration. Beneath it, it was a trap. The catering team arrived early. Sarah stayed close to me, making sure everything went exactly according to plan. "You look calm," she whispered, glancing at me as I adjusted a flower arrangement. "I've had a long time to practice," I replied quietly. At 5 o'clock, the guests began to arrive. Laughter filled the air, polite, happy, innocent laughter. They had no idea they were walking into a story they'd remember for the rest of their lives. Emma greeted everyone with her perfect smile, wearing a deep blue dress that sparkled under the chandeliers. She looked like someone playing a role in a movie she didn't know the ending to. When she saw me, she froze for half a second, then composed herself. "Juliet, you came!" "Of course," I said with a pleasant smile. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." Her eyes flickered nervously. Maybe some part of her sensed it, the weight in the air, the shift in the atmosphere, like before lightning strikes. Daniel arrived right on time. He looked dashing in his charcoal suit, confident, surrounded by people clapping and cheering. He hugged Emma first, too long, too close, and then turned to me with that same practiced warmth. "Juliet," he said, "you didn't have to come. I thought you were busy tonight." I smiled faintly. "I finished early. I wouldn't miss your special day." For a moment, our eyes met, his full of pride and ignorance, mine full of quiet certainty. The hunter didn't yet know he'd already stepped into the trap. The evening moved smoothly. Toasts, laughter, small talk. Emma flitted around the room like a hostess straight out of a glossy magazine. Daniel was glowing under the attention, shaking hands, laughing, pretending to be the man everyone thought he was. At exactly 8:30, I gave the signal to the DJ. He dimmed the lights. The room hushed. Daniel turned toward me confused. "Juliet?" he asked, chuckling nervously. "What's going on?" I walked toward the center of the room, microphone in hand. My heart was beating, but not from fear, from clarity. "This evening," I began, my voice steady and warm, "isn't just about celebrating a birthday. It's about celebrating truth and the people we truly are behind closed doors." Daniel frowned, glancing around at the crowd. Laughter rippled uncertainly among the guests. I gestured toward the large projector screen behind me. Over the past 20 years, Daniel and I have built a life together. Memories, a family, a dream. Tonight, I'd like to share some of those moments with you. A round of applause followed. The room dimmed further, and then the slideshow began. At first, the images were sweet. Old photos from our early years, vacations, birthdays, our first house. Daniel smiled, relaxing. Emma smiled too, pretending to share in his nostalgia. Then the screen changed. The next image wasn't from our past. It was from 3 weeks ago. Daniel and Emma, hand in hand outside the Mariners Hotel. The room went dead silent. Someone near the back gasped. Emma's smile froze, her face draining of color. Daniel turned toward me, his jaw tightening. "Juliet, what is this?" I didn't answer. The slideshow continued. Photo after photo. The restaurant, the beach walk, the cafe. Every picture, a truth they thought was hidden. Every flash of the screen, another heartbeat of silence from the crowd. When the final image appeared, Daniel and Emma in the reflection of a glass window, smiling like newlyweds, I stepped forward. "I spent years believing love meant trust," I said softly. "But sometimes, love means knowing when to stop protecting someone who doesn't protect you." The room stayed silent. Only the faint hum of the projector filled the air. Emma's hands were shaking. Daniel's face was red with anger and panic. "Juliet," he hissed under his breath. "Turn it off, now." I met his eyes, steady and calm. "No, Daniel, you did this. I'm just showing it." Guests started whispering. I could hear their murmurs, disbelief, pity, anger. Emma looked like she wanted to disappear. Then, as the lights came back on, I smiled gently at the guests. "Thank you all for being here," I said. "I didn't plan this to humiliate anyone. I planned this to remind myself that truth deserves a voice, even when it hurts." And with that, I walked away, leaving Daniel standing under the warm golden lights, surrounded by the ruins of his own lies. Outside, the night air felt different, clean, cool, free. Sarah was waiting near the entrance, eyes wide. "Juliet," she whispered, "you did it." I took a deep breath. "No, Sarah, the truth did it." For the first time in years, my hand stopped trembling. The silence inside me was no longer heavy. It was peaceful. The loudest sound that night wasn't the music, or the whispers, or the gasps. It was the sound of my heart finally going quiet. When I walked out of the ballroom, I didn't look back. Behind me, I could still hear the echoes of confusion, the muffled questions, the shifting feet, the soft hum of shame filling the air like smoke after a fire. Outside, the night was calm. The sky was painted in shades of navy and silver. A light wind brushed through my hair, and for a fleeting moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Sarah followed me out moments later. She was pale, breathless, half in shock and half in awe. "Juliet," she whispered, "I've never seen anything like that. You didn't just expose him, you ended him." I smiled faintly, my voice steady. "No, Sarah, he ended himself. I just turned on the lights." We stood in silence for a while, watching the guests leave one by one. Some walked out quickly, avoiding eye contact. Others paused to give me a quiet nod, not pity, but respect. And then Daniel came out. He looked smaller somehow, his suit wrinkled, his face pale, the confident posture gone. "Juliet," he said softly, his voice trembling, "you didn't have to do that." I turned to face him. Didn't I? He opened his mouth, but no words came. I stepped closer, my tone calm, but cutting through the air like glass. "You lied to me, Daniel. For months, maybe years. You built your life on half-truths and excuses, and you thought I'd never see it. I wasn't supposed to. But do you know what hurts the most?" He stayed silent, his jaw clenched. "That I kept waiting for you to be honest, even when I already knew the truth, even when it was right in front of me." He looked down, shame flickering across his face. "I made a mistake," he muttered. I shook my head. "No, you made a choice. There's a difference." He tried to reach for my hand, but I stepped back. "You know what I realized tonight?" I said quietly. "That love without respect isn't love at all. It's dependency. It's survival disguised as loyalty. And I'm done surviving." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the streetlights. Then I turned and walked toward my car. "Juliet," he called out behind me, his voice cracking. "Please, don't leave me like this." I stopped, my hand on the car door. "Daniel," I said softly, "you left me long before tonight. You just didn't notice." And with that, I drove away. That night, I didn't go home. I drove to the old pier, the one we used to visit when we first fell in love. The ocean stretched endlessly before me, black and silver under the moonlight. I sat there for hours, watching the water move in gentle waves, thinking about everything that had just happened. There were no tears left to cry, only a strange, aching stillness. For so long, I had thought of love as something you protected, no matter what. But maybe love was never meant to be protected. Maybe it was meant to breathe, even if that meant letting it go. When dawn broke, I drove back home. The first light of morning spilled through the curtains as I stepped inside. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that once haunted me, but now felt like peace. I made myself coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and just existed. No anger, no fear, just me. The phone rang a few times that morning. Daniel, of course. Then Emma. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop, clicked on the folder labeled Truth, and deleted it. Every photo, every video, every receipt, gone. Because I didn't need the evidence anymore. The truth had already done its job. And sometimes, the most powerful kind of revenge is silence, the kind that doesn't look back. Later that day, Sarah came over with breakfast. She placed a paper bag on the counter and said softly, "You must be exhausted." I nodded, smiling faintly. "I should be, but I feel lighter." She sat across from me, studying my face. "So, what now?" I sipped my coffee, thinking for a moment. "Now, I start over. Without secrets, without pretending." Sarah smiled. "You're stronger than you think, Juliet." I looked at her and replied, "No. I'm finally as strong as I always was. I just stopped hiding it." That evening, I walked through the bakery alone, closing early. The warm scent of sugar and cinnamon filled the air. I ran my hand over the countertop. Smooth, familiar, mine. Every inch of that place carried my history, my effort, my survival. I thought about the woman I was a year ago, always waiting for someone else to define her worth. And then I thought about the woman standing there now, unbroken, unafraid, and finally free. Outside, the sunset painted the sky in colors of gold and rose, the kind of beauty that comes only after a storm. And I smiled, because this time I wasn't waiting for anyone to save me. I had already saved myself. I didn't need revenge to heal. I needed truth, and once I had it, I was finally free. When something shatters, the sound is violent. But what no one tells you is that the quiet that follows can be the most beautiful sound you'll ever hear. 2 months had passed since that night. The story of Daniel and Emma had traveled through the town like a summer storm, loud, sudden, and soon replaced by calm skies. People stopped whispering. The bakery doors still opened every morning, and I kept breathing. The first few weeks were strange. I would wake at dawn expecting the smell of Daniel's coffee, the shuffle of his shoes on the tile. But the house stayed still. At first, that stillness felt unbearable. Then, slowly, it became peace. I learned to fill my mornings with soft music and sunlight instead of worry. I repainted the living room pale yellow. I gave away the old sofa where we used to sit in silence, and bought a new one. A deep emerald green, strong and full of life. Every little change felt like reclaiming another piece of myself. Sarah came over often. We didn't talk much about what happened. Instead, we baked together. We laughed at small things. Burnt cookies, crooked frosting, the way we both forgot the oven timer. It wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about choosing what deserved space in the present. One afternoon, as we cleaned the counters, she said softly, "You know, Juliet, people think strength looks loud. But you made it look calm." I smiled. Maybe strength isn't about fighting. Maybe it's about staying kind after you've been broken. My son visited too. He had kept his distance during the chaos, trying to process the mess of it all. But one Saturday morning, I found him standing at the bakery door, holding 2 coffees. "Hi, Mom," he said quietly. "Hi," I whispered back. We sat by the window, watching people walk past. He stared at his cup for a long time before saying, "I was angry at you for a while. I thought maybe you embarrassed Dad. But then I realized he embarrassed himself. You just stopped covering for him." Tears welled in my eyes. "I never wanted to hurt him," I said. "I just wanted the truth to exist." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I know, and I'm proud of you." Those words healed something inside me that no apology ever could. By spring, I opened a second bakery branch near the lake. It was smaller, warmer, a place where I could breathe. On the counter, I placed a little chalkboard that read, "Fresh starts are baked here daily." Customers smiled every time they read it. Sometimes older women would linger by the counter, look at me quietly, and say, "You remind me that it's never too late to begin again." I'd smile back and hand them a pastry, because they were right. It's never too late. One evening after closing, I walked to the pier again, the same place where I had cried months ago. The sky was bruised with pink and violet, the waves gentle, steady. I leaned on the railing, watching the horizon fade into dusk, and then I whispered to the wind, "I forgive you, Daniel. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." The words drifted away, carried by the sea breeze, and with them went the last traces of anger. Life moved forward quietly but meaningfully. Some nights I'd sit on my new emerald sofa with a cup of tea and a candle burning nearby. No noise, no tension, no pretending. Just warmth, just me. I'd look around at the life I'd rebuilt from ashes and realize freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it hums softly in the background while you knead dough or sip tea, reminding you that you survived. I thought the end of love was the end of me, but it was the beginning. The moment I finally met the woman I was always meant to be. I stood up, blew out the candle, and whispered, "Tomorrow's another beautiful day." And for the first time in years, I truly believed it. Now, a message to listeners. If you're listening to this story and you've ever been betrayed, remember, your story doesn't end with heartbreak. It ends when you decide to start again. You don't need revenge. You need you. And maybe, just maybe, one day you'll wake up, look around your quiet kitchen, and realize that peace was all you ever needed. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Echoes of Her for more stories about love, strength, and healing. See you in the next story.